Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Daily Football Roundup proudly brings to you the best damn podcast in the world, the 12-ounce Curl Route Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Current. You can find me on X at Aaron Current. My co-host, Kyle, can be found there at DF Roundup. And my co-host, C-Flow, is too cool for X. What's going on, fellas? Happy 1 week after the draft day, I guess. I would say. How we feeling?
I don't know that we can say 1 week after the draft when I feel like the draft goes on for it feels like 3 weeks. Honestly, I know it's only 3 days, but technically we're 3 days post NFL draft. 4 days, 3 days before.
Some days
we're X amount of days post NFL draft, and I'll be the first to say it. Corey shaved. He looks like a different person.
But it got hot. It got hot down here. I'm outdoors. I work outdoors, and it got hot. So I've already got some suntan going on here a little bit. Yeah. So
nice. We just booked our trip to Florida, so I need to start getting on, getting out there and getting my base tan set.
There you go.
But so we had a historic draft. We saw 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12. That's the first time that's ever happened. We did have 6 quarterbacks drafted back in 1983. That was Dan Marino's draft, but Dan Marino was picked 27th by the Miami Dolphins, so it is historic. We didn't see a defensive player drafted until 15, which was another record. What do you guys do? You think that was that is the way the NFL is going, or just reflection of the talent that these NFL teams thought? Corey, I'll pass to you first.
In my opinion, this was a very weak defensive draft. You had your 2 or 3 corners that were really good, a couple edge guys that were really good. Other than that, it was kind of weak in defense. And I thought, opposite of that, the offensive players, especially the skill players, very strong this year. And I think that's just how everybody was feeling. And we've seen that with the 12 quarterbacks, or the 6 quarterbacks and 12 picks.
We had 12 quarterbacks.
It's something else.
What about you, Kyle? How do you think it's a reflection?
I mean, I don't think that it's a reflection of the way the NFL is going or anything like that. I mean, I think that we have consistently seen, aside from the draft with Kenny Pickett, we've seen quarterbacks kind of push up the board. And this was a very heavy wide receiver draft, and this was a very heavy offensive lineman draft, and we saw that in the first round. We're going to see probably in 3 years, half of these quarterbacks that were taken in the first round probably not even on their team. That's kind of the way it goes. I think the Bears have now taken 3 quarterbacks in the first round in the last 7 years.
Trubisky, Fields, and now Williams. Yeah.
The Patriots are on their 2nd quarterback in the first round in 3 years, I think. Yeah. So I mean, it's a tough world we're living in, where if you don't make it as a first round pick, you're getting sent somewhere else for a 6th. So we'll see in 3 years which quarterbacks are left and which ones are getting their 5th-year option declined by another team.
Yeah, it's definitely a crapshoot. I looked back at that 1983 draft today just to see kind of who was picked where, and Elway's picked first overall. I believe Jim Kelly, was in that draft, and then of course Dan Marino. But the other 3 quarterbacks were not recognizable to me, so I don't know how good or bad they were, but they weren't Hall of Famers, So it's it's definitely a crapshoot every year, which way it turns out. I think we should all talk about our teams, and then we'll get into talking about the draft in general. As a Bears fan, I don't want to get out over my skis. I feel like I do that quite often. I did it with Justin Fields just because I loved him as a prospect. With Caleb Williams, I liked him, but I wasn't in love with him the way I was with Justin Fields. But after continuing to look at what he's done in college and seeing his ability to get the ball out quick, to read the field, to do he's doing things at the college level that Justin Steele isn't doing 3 years into his NFL level. So I'm excited about what he can do. And we went out and grabbed Rome Odunze in the top 10 in the draft, who I was a big Marvin Harrison Jr. fan, but some people even thought Rome Odunze could be better than Marvin. Speed, height. Corey's one of them right here on our podcast. So speed, height, route running, and I listened to them in interviews. They already sound like what's his name, John C. Riley and Will Ferrell. They just sound like best friends that have gone back for years, even though they didn't even meet each other until like the combine. So that's really great. And then in the third round, the Bears drafted a developmental offensive tackle who could play guard right away. We're not sure which way he's going to go. Then we drafted the greatest punter, the best player on Iowa's team last year, a punter in the fourth round. I know a lot of Bears fans were upset, but this guy's an absolute weapon in a unit, the way he's able to pin teams deep. He's already playing in Iowa's weather, so he doesn't have to fix anything to get used to Chicago weather. And then we traded back up in the fifth round and grabbed Austin Booker, a defensive end out of Kansas, who a lot of people wanted with that pick back when they drafted that punter. So overall, I'm pretty happy with what the Bears have done. Again, you say, Kyle, we won't know right now. We'll know in 3 years, But as of right now, I'm really happy with what the Bears came out of the draft with. And I don't know, maybe they can do something this time. Kyle, what did you feel about your on the other side of the coin, your Green Bay Packers? How did you feel about the way they came out of the draft?
So I was right in thinking that the Packers were going to take an offensive lineman in the first round because they never do anything sexy. Kool-Aid McKinstry was there, somebody that I wanted. Cooper DeJean was there, somebody that I had wanted. And they take an offensive lineman from Arizona, and it's like, okay, it's a position of need. And then in round 2, it comes up, and we are on the clock. We get traded ahead of. Eagles take Cooper DeJean. And I'm like, all right, it's Kool-Aid. It's Kool-Aid time, and we trade out of that second rounder, and the Saints trade up and get Kool-Aid, and we trade back and we get Cooper. I can never get we get Cooper from Texas A&M, and I can never get his first name.
Linebacker, correct? Is it Edgerrin?
Edgerrin Cooper, I believe. Yep, yeah. And then we get Jonathan Bullard from Georgia.
I don't want to cut you off, but I love that. Javon Bullard is a guy that I've been watching for 2 years at Georgia. Absolute decimate offenses. To me, that was this. And I don't want to cut you off on your segment here, but I love that pick. Absolutely loved it.
And then we got Marshawn Lloyd from USC. So the first 4 picks out of those. And, everybody's going to say, well, this guy's the best at this position. This guy's the best at this position. But Bullard's the best pure safety in this draft. And Green Bay got him. Green Bay got the best linebacker in the draft with Edgerrin Cooper. And some people would argue that Marshawn Lloyd was the best running back in this class as well. And Green Bay got him. And then from there, it was just getting depth pieces. They took 3 offensive linemen. They took 3 safeties. They took the quarterback, Michael Pratt from Tulane, which should have went probably in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah.
I think at one point he had the green wave, in the top, he had him in the top 25 this past season. I know that, not just him, but they were. So Green Bay's just hitting positions of need, pretty much. We got Tyron Hooper from Missouri as well, and making the move from the 3-4 to the 4-3 and getting these speedy guys. It was pretty exciting to see. So I am happy with Green Bay's draft. I did think that they would take a wide receiver, even though we had so many come on last year. So I was surprised that we didn't. But I love that we added 11 players to this roster. And it's going to be a dogfight for these guys to make the roster coming out of training camp. So I definitely am happy with what Green Bay did.
I was really shocked to see Michael Pratt there. I believe you guys grabbed him in round 7 or round 6. I was watching it that last day, and he just kept falling. And as you said, you saw quarterbacks like a Spencer Rattler or the kid from Florida State, who I think is going to be really good, but he's dealing with that injury. But Michael Pratt in a lot of mock drafts was going way before those guys. So I don't know what happened in the pre-draft process, or basically we saw either the quarterbacks go in the first round or they weren't touching you until day 3, which I guess it just becomes a numbers game at that point. And I mean, the Packers have done it in the past where they draft a guy, let him sit behind somebody, and then trade him away for draft equity, or who knows, maybe he'll end up playing for your Green Bay Packers if Jordan doesn't continue to ascend. But yeah, I was really shocked by that one. Corey, you got a new number 10, a new quarterback in town in Foxborough. How are you feeling about your draft, brother?
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously I wanted Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix. I feel that we could have traded with Minnesota and done some stuff, but I've talked myself into it, just like everybody else has talked themselves into their players. I like Drake May's arm. His team was atrocious last year, and he still had a decent year. I've seen him be good. So I'm okay with it, I guess, especially if we just couldn't pull off a trade. Our second rounder, we took Jalen Polk. I watched a lot of Washington Huskies this year. Some people say it was a reach. I put Jalen Polk in that almost second or like maybe lower second tier receivers in this class. So I was like jacked about that. I don't think we reached. In the third round, you could say we reached for Caden Wallace, tackle out of Penn State, but there were so many tackles being taken. We needed one.
Right.
Our first fourth rounder was Layden Robinson out of Texas A&M. There's a lot of people that had him a day 2 guy. So I'm actually really excited about that. And then we got Javon Baker for the wide receiver at UCF. I love that pick. I was hoping we would get 2 receivers, and I'm excited that we got Baker. I know he played at UCF and he wasn't shown on TV a lot, but I've seen his highlights. He can win downfield. I don't care what division or what conference he was in. So all in all, I'm pretty excited. And then we got Joe Milton, Tennessee, with the pick for Mac Jones. Quite the contrast where Joe Milton can throw one ball and it takes Mac Jones to throw 3 to catch up to it. So I don't mind our quarterback room. We got a lot of guys that can throw balls. So we'll see. There's rumors about turning him into a tight end. I don't think that will happen. But, I mean, if that's our third quarterback, I'm fine. And then the last pick that we had was Bell at a tight end out of Florida State. If he catches the ball, he can do some damage after the catch. So I'm excited. I think it was a pretty good draft for us. Drake May wasn't my first choice, but he'll prove me wrong, I'm sure. And it's a better number 10 to have.
Yeah, I know your second round pick, Polk, I believe watching him in the playoffs when they had Rome Odunze, they were focused on shutting him down. Polk was one of those guys who stepped up for them to help push them into the title game. So he stuck out to me during that game. I didn't watch a whole lot of Washington football because they were on just so late here.
Yeah.
But what I saw of them, it looked like a really fun team to watch. And yeah, I like that you guys beefed up your O-line. I think that was a big issue with part of what kept Mac Jones from ascending after that great rookie year was he didn't have any time to throw. So you start beefing up that O-line, you get a couple of weapons. Who knows? Maybe the New England Patriots start to turn things around in a really tough division out east. What I really wanted to do today was talk about the draft overall. Winners, losers, sleepers, in a head-scratching move. I think I want to go with a head-scratcher first. And I'm just going to open it up. I was shocked as the Bears were waiting at number 9. I was absolutely flabbergasted that the Atlanta Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. I know this has been talked about a lot all over the place. My opinion is you don't pay a quarterback $180 million and then draft another quarterback in the top 10. Kyle, they've been saying this is like the Packers with Aaron Rodgers or even Favre, but it's not the same thing. Those guys were established veterans who were reaching the eclipse or the end of their careers in a lot of Packers fans' eyes, and they were able to replace them. And Michael Penix, I love him as a prospect. I think he threw the prettiest ball in college football. But he's 24 years old with 2 busted ACLs already, and now he's got to sit possibly 3 years before he ever sees the field. It just didn't make sense to me on the night. And Colin Cowherd can tell me it's for insurance purposes all he wants. It still doesn't make sense to me a week later. Uh, Corey, I know you loved Penix. What were your thoughts when you saw him go off the board at 8 to the Atlanta Falcons?
I love Penix, and if Kirk wasn't there, that'd be a great fit for him. For me, Falcons needed so much more than a backup quarterback to – now, look, this is a 4-year deal. It can easily be turned into a 2-year deal. So there's that thing. And the age part, I'm really not concerned about that. I know that's a big thing now, but 5 years at a rookie contract is 5 years at a rookie contract or whatever. So I just – you heard the saying, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. Well, with both of these getting hurt the way they are, maybe these 2 hurt quarterbacks equal 1. So I can see the insurance part of it, but I just think they could have done so much more, and that's why it was such a head scratcher for me.
Well, it was a team that the Atlanta Falcons were, if I'm not mistaken, they were the worst pass rushing team in the entire league last year, ranked 32nd, I believe, in pressures and sacks and all these numbers. And you had your choice for anyone on the defensive side of the ball, and you chose to go with a backup quarterback. Even if you go with an offensive lineman to help Kirk stay upright, or hell, grab Rome Odunze and try to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Figure it out with another weapon in Atlanta. It's a head scratcher to me.
The other thing too for me is like, look, all right, obviously the quarterbacks were going at 12. Vikings were going to take whoever's left. If it was just Penix, I think they would have taken him too. Okay. Just because like he was ranked in the 2nd round. All right. So let's just pretend that they're taken anyway. There's still some decent backups that were in the 2nd, 3rd round or 4th round that you could have got to back up Kirk Cousins, or gone and got like another vet or something like that, or traded back. You could, all kinds of people wanted that 8th round pick or that 8th pick overall. Mm-hmm. I just think it was, I can see why they did it, but I could understand more why they would do it if their defense was better, for example, or their O-line was better, for example. So,
yeah, and they're really in a winnable division too, so it makes that head scratcher even more of a head scratcher. Kyle, what were your thoughts when Penix went off the board?
My thoughts were a lot like anybody else's. Is seriously, they just took Penix at 8 when I read something today that the Jets were actually trying to trade for number 8 without giving up their 1st round pick as well. Is that what I read? No. The Falcons were trying to trade back up at 10 without giving up number 8. So they were trying to get back in the 1st to get somebody, which, maybe they weren't anticipating Penix to be there, and Penix was at the top of their board. A lot of GMs will tell you, or the successful ones at least, they don't let their need become the thing that they take. They take the best player available. Baltimore, for me, in my opinion, I think Baltimore does that every year really, really well.
Lately, Detroit's been doing it.
Detroit's done that. Philadelphia did that this year by taking 2 corners. Cooper DeJean's probably more of a safety, but, they didn't really force any picks. So that could have been hey, he's the best player on our board. We're not really sure what Kirk Cousins' Achilles looks like. We may not have a 1st round pick next year because we tampered with Kirk Cousins. We're probably going to lose some sort of picks. And, Kirk Cousins' contract is really only a 2-year contract. So questionable picking him at number 8. But if he's truly the best guy on your board and you're have any uncertainty about the quarterback you just signed in free agency, then it's not a terrible pick. We might look back on this in 2 or 3 years and say, wow, that was a really smart idea by the Falcons. But in the right now, we're going to say, holy shit, they could have added somebody on defense. They could have traded back and added more picks. They could have got Rome Odunze, like Aaron said, or Corey, whichever one of you said that. They could have done a plethora of things.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe you trade back to 10, 12, because if the Vikings really wanted JJ and they trade up to 12, and the Broncos really wanted Bo Nix, or 11, Vikings were 11, wherever they trade, Penix may have still been there, and you added more draft capital.
I
But
think the
if
lowest you could have went without grabbing Penix would be Vegas. I think the Raiders.
you would have to stay in front of yes.
Yeah. So, but what? Okay, what was your head scratcher of the draft then, Kyle?
I actually have a few. So you already mentioned Vegas, right? They took Michael Mayer last year, number 35 overall tight end.
Yeah.
They're on the clock at 13. I'm not thinking they're taking a tight end. And what do? They take Brock Bowers. Again, could have been best player available. Maybe they're planning on going a 2 tight end set. I don't know, because you've got Devontae Adams, you've got Jacoby Myers, you have a veteran quarterback in Gardner Minshew who will probably be the starter there this year. So unless you're running a 2 tight end set, you're kind of pushing Michael Mayer to the side. Another one for me is a lot of people may see the Vikings as the winners of this draft. I see a head scratcher with Minnesota because they have 3 picks next year. They have a first-round pick and they have 2 fifth-round picks from all of the trading that they did in this draft. They gave up draft capital next year to move into the first round. They gave up draft capital to move up from 11 to 10, and they gave up draft capital to move up from 23 to 17. That one to me was also questionable. A big head scratcher for me, and you guys can say what you want, is Devin Leary going to the Baltimore Ravens. Devin Leary does not fit the scheme that the Baltimore Ravens run. Why are you bringing in this guy who doesn't really fit your offense?
You're talking to Kentucky guys. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it didn't make sense.
It doesn't fit. So for me, that was definitely a head scratcher. I didn't understand that pick. You don't really bring in a guy that doesn't have a lot of mobility to run an offense that is based around your quarterback's mobility. Right. So I don't know. It was that was a head scratcher.
Yeah. So definitely, the Vikings. I didn't even look at their future draft capital. Yeah, they really traded. They're putting a lot into JJ
for JJ. Corey. All that
right.
for JJ.
Yeah, right. Corey, what was your biggest head scratcher if you got one?
I mean, Bo Nix, I thought was like I know Denver, whatever, and all the stuff that came out with Sean Payton saying, well, he's basically going to be Patrick Mahomes. Well, no, he's not.
I think he sees Drew Brees in him more than anything.
Fine, that's fine, but I mean, I think the Patriots are in better shape than the Broncos. So, but like to me, the Broncos need. You want to talk about a team that was gutted last year? It was the Broncos, and you could have got so many more things besides Bo Nix at 12.
Yeah.
And that one was kind of just like that was honestly that was more of a head scratcher than Penix to me. But I mean, really? And I know that quarterback was their need and stuff, like number one need, but according to, whatever, but I just think they could have done a lot of other things.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they had just got Zach Wilson and they hadn't even seen him. I just think Bo Nix to the Broncos was a foregone conclusion weeks ago. They went to a workout with him and they loved him. They came away blown away. He crushed the workout apparently. And we talked about on here, I believe, the measurables between Bo Nix and Drew Brees are eerily similar from hand size to height to their how long they were in college. I think Bo Nix was there longer because he's played forever, but I don't know. I kind of like the fit. I know Kyle, our friend from the Army, pal, he was texting me about it, and he didn't like it at first. He hated it, but I think he's kind of come around to it. And honestly, I have too. I just feel like he was a better fit for, especially like you said, Corey, with Atlanta grabbing Penix. I just feel like Nix was a better fit and feels a need, and I think he'll get along swimmingly with Sean Payton, that was the biggest issue with Russ is they just didn't click,
Yeah.
And the Broncos are paying the price for that financially and via draft capital. I mean, that's the reason why they weren't able to really move around a lot, I think, is they just didn't have the draft capital. So they went after the guy they wanted. And I think if they hadn't picked him, Vegas right behind them would have drafted him. So
that's true. And same division. So yeah.
Right.
The other thing, real quick, on the Penix thing, I heard, I can't remember who said it, but see if I can get this right. Not only did Atlanta not visit him, I think somebody from Atlanta only talked to him for like 20 minutes. This entire process.
No
So
way.
like they didn't even work him out or anything. Like that's what makes that pick just a little bit more weird.
Yeah. Another head before we move on, another head scratch that we had. I have to look up his name, but the Detroit Lions drafted an offensive lineman. If I can find him. Let me, he's out of Canada. Like he didn't have a call, but they traded a pick from next year to move up to get this guy. And maybe it works out. I mean, it worked out for the Eagles when they drafted that 7th rounder, who I believe is their starting left tackle now. But to trade future draft capital for a guy,
Giovanni Manu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds right. Sure.
Giovanni Manu in the 4th round.
Yeah, so they
traded University of British Columbia.
Yeah, I don't even know how you like. I was even trying to look up any kind of tape or size or measurables or anything on this guy. I was no clue who he was or what or anything. I mean, those guys get paid millions of dollars to know these guys, I guess, but you're trading away future draft capital in the hopes that this guy turns out. The Eagles drafted their guy in the 7th round. It was kind of a throwaway pick, and he turned out to be fantastic and great. But I don't know. Those are real head scratcher for me on all that. But we'll move along unless you guys have something to say about that tackle for the Lions.
Yeah, that tackle for the Lions was also drafted at number 46 overall in the 2024 CFL draft. So he drafted twice.
Wow. I wonder what conference the University of British Columbia is in.
No idea.
Not the
anyway,
SEC.
Yeah, we'll move on to. I want to after a head scratchers. Let's go to something positive. Who are your draft winners? Corey, or who did I start with last time? Kyle, I'll start with you. Tell me your draft winner and why.
So I'll go. I got a few for everything, but since we just talked about him, really my draft winner is Michael Penix. You get to sit for 2 years and learn the offense and learn the players around you and learn that organization. And probably after 2 years, when Kirk Cousins is gone, you get to take over a team that hopefully should be thriving by that point. If they can lock up Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London long term, and they are hoping that Penix will have 2 years left on his contract, probably that he has, and he's not forced to start right away. So Michael Penix will be one of the 3 quarterbacks in 2 or 3 years that's probably still with his team that drafted him unless something drastic changes. But he's not going to be rushed into anything like these other 5 quarterbacks who were drafted in the first round were. Another big one for me is the 20 undrafted free agents that got signed by the Chargers. Each and every one of them have a chance to be a winner for that organization because they don't have a lot of money to spend on outside free agents right now. Yeah. So they're giving these guys opportunities to make a roster and make an impact within that organization. The AFC North is another winner for me. And the reason being is because of those 4 teams in the North, combined, each team with their first 2 draft picks, 7 of the 8 of them were either offense or defensive line. And it's just, that's what we see year in and year out for these organizations is they're getting these big guys up front and you've got these big meaty men slapping meat against each other. So for me, those are a lot of my winners from the draft.
Well, I mean, I was thinking of it a different way. I was thinking more team, but I mean, that works too. To talk about the way a prospect won in the draft. Corey, who's your draft winner? If you can give me one.
To me, it's again, the Eagles. This year. I don't care that Quentin Mitchell played in the MAC. Quentin Mitchell was the best cornerback, in my opinion. And then they got Cooper DeJean with the next pick, cornerback or safety, depending on what they're going to do. You got these 2 extremely talented guys that have staying healthy. You got those guys in Philly for 10 years probably. And they're just going to grow together, and it's going to be awesome. And then I liked Will Shipley out of Clemson, the running back. They got him in the 4th. And then the Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Yes.
Clemson. I love that pick for a lot of reasons, obviously. And I think they just let everything fall to them. for the most part. So they filled some needs that they had. I mean, they already have a talented team, but that 1-2 punch at corner / safety to me is just that alone right there is the winner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you guys remember in our mock draft, I grabbed Cooper DeJean for them in the first round. So for him to fall all the way to him in the second round, and they're able to grab him, stick him at safety, and like you said, Mitchell was a fantastic corner. All that talent fell down in the draft because all the quarterbacks jumped up, the wide receivers jumped up, offensive line, people felt like they had to grab them. That makes blue chip talent falling to the back part of the draft where these teams that are already great now have players that they never thought would be available to them falling to them. And then Jeremiah Trotter, for anyone who doesn't know, if you're too young to know, Jeremiah Trotter Sr. played for the Philadelphia Eagles for years. So I think I loved seeing him get drafted by the Eagles on day 3. That was one of those stories that I was watching for on day 3. I thought it was fantastic, and obviously it's a perfect fit. I mean, he knows what he's walking into there. My draft winner is the Pittsburgh Steelers, fellas. They draft Troy Fautanu in the first round, a tackle that I grabbed in our mock draft in the top 10. In the second round, they come back and grab Zach Frazier, the center out of West Virginia. Beefing up the O-line, they grabbed Roman Wilson out of Michigan to plug into their slot. I just really like a lot of the moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers made. I think they had a fantastic draft. And like you said, Kyle, the North divisions, both NFC and AFC, are going to be fantastic to watch this year, I think. But let's bring it down a little bit.
Hold up. Another winner real quick for me was I liked, the fact that the Jets did what they were supposed to do and didn't mess it up.
That's true.
I like how they took Jordan Travis, quarterback out of Florida State. They got hurt.
Yeah.
I love that for maybe a building block for them later on down the road. That was a bad injury. That team was good. Are we seeing how good he was for that team and what they were without him? So I think that was a quiet one. I guess I could use that for my sleeper, but I should. We'll come back to it. We'll come back.
We'll come back. But before we get to sleepers, we're going to talk about who do you think lost the NFL draft or isn't necessarily a winner? It's hard to say an NFL draft loser a week after the draft, but who do you just feel like made a boneheaded move or did something that just didn't make sense to you? Corey, I'll go to you first.
For me, I think for me it was the Dallas Cowboys. And it's more or less like the Dallas Cowboys starting from free agency until now. Tyler Guyton, I mean, he could be good, but he hasn't played hardly at all.
That's who you drafted for him.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, there was a run on O-lineman. But I guess they just didn't impress me really with their draft. Like, I mean, they got some decent picks and stuff, but they just need so much, and they did nothing. Like, I can't remember. Is it like Diddle or something that like is their number one running back right now? Or I can't remember his name.
Unless something's changed.
They did sign
their
Zeke
number.
back, yeah.
Their number one running back wears number 15, and his name is Ezekiel Elliott. That was made official the other day. But Rico Dowdle is who you're thinking about there. They also signed Royce Freeman, and they have Deuce Vaughn on that roster as well.
I still can't believe Royce Freeman's playing. So I don't know. I've been so disappointed in Dallas since free agency started. And
they're all in.
There was no all in.
Hey, Jerry Jones let y'all know he had the 24th pick because there was 23 teams worse than them.
CeeDee Lamb's going to have 2,300 yards. That's all I know at this point.
Just to go to Green Bay and lose to the Packers in week 1 of the playoffs.
No, Green Bay will go to them again.
Y'all don't have Aaron Jones anymore. I don't know. Kyle, who did you have as an NFL draft loser, I guess?
So again, I did it a little unconventional. I said that Michael Penix was my winner. Kirk Cousins is one of my losers, obviously. You miss out on the opportunity to get him a weapon and or somebody on the defense to help get that ball back for him. We've talked enough about Kirk Cousins in this show, though. Another loser for me is the running backs. The running backs continue to be losers, aside from Bijan last year and Jahmyr Gibbs. The running backs are fewer and far between in the first round, where it's getting hard to see running backs going high, and they continue to fall out of the first. And we've seen a lot of success from these running backs who are getting used and abused and aren't really getting those second contracts that they're really should probably be getting. And then another loser potentially is going to be either the Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Vikings, or the Broncos. The reason being, as I've said so many times already, in 3 or so years, 2 or 3 of those teams are going to be moving on from their quarterback. I can't tell you who right now, but in 3 years, I can come back and tell you, oh, this team was a loser on draft night because there goes their quarterback. We are going to see some of these quarterbacks fail. It's unfortunate. We're going to see that. It's a good thing they got paid because they're going to be set for a long, long time. But they're going to be moved on from in the next few years. Some of these guys will, and we'll look back on that draft and say, what were they doing? Why did they do that? It happens every year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, not every team has a Hall of Famer placeholder, though. They got to, so it becomes a revolving door.
Notice that I only named 5 of the 6 teams that took a quarterback in the first round because Penix is set up for success.
Okay. My NFL draft loser, at least in the first round, dear Buffalo, what are you doing? I was on you last year about your stadium. That's stupid. You live in Canada and you need a roof. But now you can't beat the Chiefs. The last time you traded with the Chiefs, they come up and get Patrick Mahomes. This year you're like, sure, come on up. Take who you want. What are we going to do about it? We can't beat you in the playoffs anyway. Come on, Buffalo. What are you doing? Corey, I thought you would jump all over this one because it's your division. You let them come up and get Xavier Worthy. If it was me in that situation, I'm either drafting him or I'm calling the team right behind me and saying, hey, somebody come up here and get this guy because I'm not letting him go to Kansas City. Period. Kyle, you drafted Worthy to the Chiefs correctly in our mock draft. It doesn't make sense to me. Awesome. You got some draft capital back, Buffalo. But Kansas City is the thorn in your side.
Yeah, that was the one team you couldn't do it to with. I don't know.
Exactly.
It must have been snowing, dark, something there. They were drunk, eating too much buffalo wings. I don't know what happened there. It was insane.
If you are in Buffalo on draft night and you see the Kansas City area code, you don't answer that bitch. Period.
Can you imagine everybody at Buffalo watching the draft and then that trade happens and then the draft goes off? Everybody's just sitting at the bar like, what just happened?
Oh, shit's wild though. Oh. Anyway. Yeah, so we'll move on to so we did our head scratchers, we got our winners, we got our losers. I know there was your sleeper pick. Kyle, I think you got some loaded up for me over there. So why don't you tell me some of your sleeper picks in this draft?
I actually have 2. And one of my sleepers, he fell out of the first round. And he was actually picked number 33 overall by the Buffalo Bills. His name is Keon Coleman. I would disagree, and I would say that what Buffalo did was brilliant. You traded back, you added additional draft capital, and you still potentially got your guy at 33. Now, the downfall is you don't have that 5th-year option on Keon Coleman. You don't have that. But you have a 6'4" body for Josh Allen. You have a guy who is now put in as a number 1 receiver in Buffalo who has a chance to thrive in that organization with a quarterback who has a rocket of an arm. His accuracy is a little off at times, but he's got a cannon. I would say that, Xavier Worthy gives me the John Ross vibes potentially. John Ross broke the record and was the fastest man, and his stock rose, and look where he is now. He's at somebody's rookie minicamp right now, probably, trying to make a team. and you can't replicate Tyreek Hill. I know Andy Reid came out and said that, Xavier Worthy reminds him more of Deshaun Jackson than Tyreek Hill, which is fair. You're putting a lot of pressure on this guy to succeed. And I get your quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, but hey, Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they couldn't catch a cold in Kansas City. My other sleeper, and I absolutely love this pick because I think that this is probably the perfect team for this player to land on, and I think he went in the 7th round. And he was grouped with a lot of these undrafted guys, 20 undrafted players going to the Chargers. Well, so did wide receiver Brendan Rice. And I'm not saying that he's a sleeper because of who his dad is. I'm saying that he's a sleeper because the Chargers drafted 3 wide receivers, one after Brendan Rice and the other one being Ladd McConkey. And there's a lot of opportunity in Los Angeles with a really good quarterback and a really good head coach. I would say that it would have been very sweet for him to go to the 49ers, but he would have been fighting for a roster spot had that happened. I think he's locked in as a 53 on the 53-man roster, and I think that we're going to see him actually show something in the 2024 season.
When I started to see him fall, I was like, come on, just fall out of the draft and call your boy Caleb. Come play with him in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him. But the speed of the wide receiver room in Kansas City is insane. You got Marquise Hollywood Brown ran a 4.27 40. You got Xavier Worthy who ran a 4.2 140. You got Rashee Rice going 120 miles per hour. Who's going to compete with that speed, Kyle? I just had to do it. Oh, yeah. So my sleeper pick, or do you want to go, Corey?
I don't know.
Yeah, you go ahead, and I'll pull up the reel.
All right, so I had actually Keon Coleman as well. I think that's a perfect fit in Buffalo. I think Josh Allen's going to love him. We've already talked about him tonight. My guy, Javon Baker out of UCF. I love that. He actually might end up being better than Polk. Eric All out of Iowa's tight end, 5th round, is a stud.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati got, I think, a steal there. And I know Ricky Pearsall was in the 1st round, but San Francisco was not happy. And I don't know why, because Ayuk or Debo, something's happening there. And you need somebody like Pearsall. We watched Pearsall in the SEC. Pearsall is a freak.
Yeah.
He is really, really good. And then Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid slipped, and then he went to the Saints, and I think that's a perfect fit for him.
Oh, yeah.
I hope he does that every time he gets an interception. And
I didn't know until the week of the draft, his grandmother gave him the name Kool-Aid because of his smile, which I thought that was an awesome story. My top sleeper in the draft is Jalen Wright, running back from Tennessee, gets drafted to the Miami track team down there in South Beach, just adding more speed to their backfield. If Devin Achane goes down for a while like he did last year with injuries, Jalen Wright can do everything that guy can do, so you don't skip a beat. They're still probably going to struggle with bully teams like they did last year against Buffalo and stuff, but adding another fast guy to your track team is fantastic. And then a guy that we talked about earlier, Jeremiah Trotter, just because I love the fit. I love where he ended up at. That was another one of my sleepers. Yeah, you talked about Ricky Pearsall, Corey. Catches everything, breaks tackles, and I didn't realize him and Ayuk were teammates at Arizona State. So they were like one of the first people to text each other because Pearsall went to Arizona State before going to Florida with the transfer rules. But, yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you guys wanted to chit-chat about or talk about the draft overall or how we're feeling about the upcoming season?
I know we still have a long way to go for the upcoming season. We'll obviously go over our division winners and everything of that nature. There's still a lot of free agents out there who need to find a roster before training camp and everything too. I had thought about before the show putting together a 53-man roster of just free agents. and seeing what that roster would look like. And I guarantee you that it could probably compete with some of these teams in the NFL as well. Guys like Ryan Tannehill, where's he going to end up? Is he going to wait until an injury happens later in the season and sign with somebody? There's just a lot of names still out there kind of floating around. We'll probably see some cuts, coming up later in June. And who knows, maybe Debo or Brandon Ayuk get traded before the season. There's still a lot to happen before we can crown a winner. So
that's true. Corey, is there any parting words for you?
For me, it's the Ayuk, the Ayuk and Debo situation. And I'm not still 100% sold that T. Higgins, something may not happen there. You would think if it was going to happen, it would happen before the draft, but you still got to go through all the camp and stuff like that. And that could be a piece that could possibly move as well.
Yeah, that'd be something to watch out for. You got a couple of guys in Cincinnati asking out, or asking for more money. That's the way the players do it. Now.
I heard that Amarius Mims has officially requested a trade as well.
You're so stupid. Oh, well, yeah, like Kyle said, we'll come back this offseason and we'll try and predict our division winners. I think last year we got a couple of them right, correct? I don't know, but I know I got the Saints wrong. I had them.
I had Carolina, so don't feel bad.
I did want to mention. One thing before we go, because I know last time we were on, I talked about. I had talked about something. Jordan Love last year threw for 4,000 yards in his first season as starter, something that's never happened in Chicago Bears franchise history. And he also threw for over 30 touchdowns last year as well. And that's also something that's never happened in Chicago Bears franchise history. So Caleb Williams has a lot to try to live up to.
The bar is really low.
The bar.
Do you know something that the Green Bay Packers have that no other team in the NFL history has ever had? They actually had a serial killer on their roster back in the day.
Aaron Hernandez was the player for the Patriots.
No, legitimate serial killer. I believe his name is Randy Starks or something like that.
I don't think
I'm pretty sure if Aaron didn't get caught, it might have been bad.
Well, he got caught though. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Follow Daily Football Roundup on YouTube, where we go live once the season starts. It's every Wednesday at 9 p.m. But while we're in the off season, we're just kind of hopping in sporadically here and there to put some things in. If you can't catch us live on YouTube or Facebook or X, you can catch us the next day on Spotify or iHeartRadio app. I'm not sure if iHeartRadio gives you the ability to, but on Spotify you can leave us 5 stars, please. That would be great. If you could leave us a review there, help us grow our algorithm and push this thing on out. But until next time, tell them, Corey.
Bye.